The highway was empty. Highway 78 stretched out black and flat under a moonless June sky, the kind of darkness that made the headlights seem weaker than they were. Elvis drove with both hands on the wheel of the rented Cadillac, windows down despite the humid Memphis night, letting the warm air rush through the car like it might carry something away with it. It was nearly 1 a.m. He'd been driving for 2 hours with no destination, just movement, just the illusion of escape. The radio was off. He couldn't stand to hear his own voice coming through the speakers anymore. The meeting had ended 6 hours ago. NBC executives, producers, writers, all sitting around a conference table, talking about the Christmas special like it was just another product. They wanted him in a tuxedo, singing carols to a staged audience. They wanted Safe. They wanted the Elvis everyone expected, the one who made movies nobody watched and records nobody cared about anymore. He was 33 years old, and he felt like a ghost haunting his own life. The Beatles had changed everything. The Stones, Dylan, they'd moved forward while he'd been locked in Hollywood making the same movie over and over. He'd spent 8 years watching his relevance dissolve, watching himself become a nostalgic punchline. And now, NBC wanted to put him in a Christmas sweater and pretend any of it mattered. A green sign appeared in the headlights. Gas, food, 2 miles. His fuel gauge sat just above empty. He took the exit. The station materialized out of the dark like a stage set, isolated and bright against the surrounding void. A single island with 2 pumps, a small concrete block building, fluorescent light spilling onto oil-stained concrete. A faded sign, Shell. Below it, open 24 hours. No other cars, no other buildings visible in any direction. Just the station, a rectangle of light in an ocean of rural Tennessee darkness. Elvis pulled up to the pumps and killed the engine. Through the windows he could see a figure behind the counter, reading something, not looking up. He took off his sunglasses and left them on the passenger seat. Then he got out. The heat hit him immediately, thick enough to taste. Diesel fuel, hot asphalt, honeysuckle from somewhere in the darkness. He walked toward the door. The bell jingled when he pushed inside. The air conditioning barely worked. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A radio played low. Merle Haggard singing about Mama Tried. "Help you," the man behind the counter said without looking up. His voice was flat, worn smooth by exhaustion. "Need to fill up," Elvis said. "The Cadillac outside." "Pumps unlocked. Pay after." Elvis nodded. A coffee pot sat on a burner behind the counter, the liquid inside dark as motor oil. "That coffee drinkable?" Elvis asked. The man looked up for the first time. His face was narrow, unshaven, with the kind of tiredness that went deeper than missing one night's sleep. The name patch on his shirt said, Robert. "Define drinkable," Robert said. "It's hot and it's got caffeine. Beyond that, I make no promises." "I'll take a cup." Robert poured the coffee into a styrofoam cup. Elvis paid, took the cup to the window, and looked out at the Cadillac sitting alone under the lights. He sipped. It was terrible, burnt and bitter and exactly what he needed. He'd spent 8 years surrounded by people who needed things from him. But here, at 1 a.m, with a tired man named Robert, who didn't recognize him or care who he was, Elvis felt something close to peace. He walked back to the counter. "Mind if I drink this in here?" Robert shrugged. "Long as you're not planning to rob me." "Not tonight." "Then we're good." Elvis leaned against the counter. Robert had gone back to his book, a worn paperback, the cover too faded to read. "Quiet night," Elvis said. "Every night's quiet out here." Robert didn't look up. You broke down or just lost? Neither. Just driving. At 1 in the morning. Couldn't sleep. Know the feeling. Robert marked his place and looked at Elvis properly. His eyes moved across Elvis's face without recognition, just assessment. Whatever he decided must have been acceptable, because he went back to his book. You work nights regular? Elvis asked. 6 nights a week, midnight to 8. That's a hard shift. It's a shift. Pays the same as days, but there's less people to deal with. Elvis smiled despite himself. Fair point. They fell into silence. A truck passed on the highway, the first vehicle in 20 minutes. So, what's keeping you up? Robert asked. If you don't mind me asking. Elvis considered how to answer. He couldn't say his name, couldn't explain the television special, or the fear of proving he had nothing left. Work stuff, he said finally. Got a big meeting coming up. Decisions to make. Feel like I'm at some kind of crossroads. Robert nodded slowly. What kind of work? Entertainment. Music. Touring musician? Something like that. Robert leaned back against the cigarette rack. Used to play a little myself, guitar. Back in high school. Thought about trying to make something of it, but he shrugged. Life gets in the way. Got married young. Kid on the way. Ended up at the plant. Which plant? Fisher Steel. Night shift there too for 12 years. This is my second job. 4 nights a week. Elvis did the math. When do you sleep? When I can. Robert poured himself coffee. It's not forever. Just until we get caught up. Medical bills, mostly. My wife, ex-wife now. She got sick a couple years back. Cancer. Beat it, thank God, but the bills. He trailed off. Anyway, that's why I'm here at 1 in the morning. I'm sorry, Elvis said. Don't be. She's alive. That's what matters. They stood in silence. George Jones sang on the radio about a tender goodbye. Can I ask you something? Elvis said. Sure. Do you ever feel like you're not the person you thought you'd be? Like somewhere along the way you became someone else, and you can't figure out how to get back? Robert looked at him steadily. Every single day. Every single day I wake up and think, this isn't what I planned. I was supposed to make something of myself. I was supposed to matter. But you do matter. You've got a daughter. Ex-wife has our daughter. I see her every other weekend. Something moved behind Robert's eyes. And yeah, I matter to her. But I also know she's watching me work myself to death at 2 jobs just to stay even. What kind of lesson is that? You're teaching her you don't quit. Or I'm teaching her that dreams don't matter, and the world will break you, no matter how hard you try. Elvis felt something twist in his chest. You don't believe that, don't I? Robert set his cup down hard. Look, I'm sorry. I don't usually talk like this. It's late and I'm tired. No, Elvis said quickly. Don't apologize, I asked. Robert rubbed his face. When he dropped his hands, he looked even more exhausted. Can I tell you something? Robert said. And this is going to sound pathetic. Go ahead. I used to believe I was special, really believe it. Thought I had something the world needed. And now I'm 36 pumping gas at 1 in the morning for minimum wage, and I can barely remember what that felt like. That certainty, that belief that I mattered. He laughed bitterly. And the worst part? I know I'm not special. I know there's a million guys just like me. I'm not unique. I'm just average. Replaceable. And that's the thing nobody tells you when you're young. Most people end up exactly here. Nowhere special. Nobody special. Just getting through. Elvis felt every word hit him somewhere deep and true. Sorry, Robert said. You didn't come in here for my life story. No, Elvis said quietly. Maybe I did. Robert picked up his book but didn't open it, just held it. You said you're at a crossroads, Robert said, with your work. Yeah. What are your options? I can play it safe, do what people expect, take the easy money, or I can take a risk, try to do something real, even if it might fail. And you're afraid of failing. I'm afraid of proving I don't have it anymore. Robert turned to look at him fully. Can I tell you what I think? Please. I think regret is worse than failure. I think safe is another word for slow death. Robert's voice carried weight now. I spent 12 years at that factory being safe. Steady paycheck, benefits, pension someday. And you know what it got me? A place where I'm so worn down I can barely remember why I wanted anything at all. He set the book down. If I could go back to when I still had the fire, I would tell myself, take the risk, play the music, fail if you're gonna fail, but fail doing something you believe in, because you know what hurts more than trying and failing, not trying at all, playing it safe until you forget you ever wanted anything else. Elvis felt his throat tighten. You said you're afraid of proving you don't have it anymore. But how do you know unless you try? Maybe you don't have what you had when you were younger. Fine. Nobody does. But maybe you have something else now. Something deeper. And you'll never know if you take the safe path. What if I try and it doesn't work? Then at least you'll know. At least you tried. Robert's eyes were intense now. Look at me. I'm the guy who played it safe. I'm the cautionary tale. And I'm standing here telling a complete stranger that I wasted my life. Is that what you want? Elvis shook his head slowly. Then take the shot. Do the thing that scares you. Make the thing that matters. Because the alternative, the safe path, that's not living. That's just a different kind of dying. The fluorescent lights buzzed. Elvis stood perfectly still, feeling something shift inside him, some locked door opening. Thank you, he said quietly. Robert shrugged. I don't know why I'm giving advice. Look where it got me. You're wrong about that, about being nobody special. Elvis met his eyes. You just said something I needed to hear more than anything in the world. That makes you pretty damn special. Robert smiled, small, tired, but genuine. Can I ask you something else? Elvis said. Sure. Your daughter, when you see her, are you happy? Robert's expression softened. Yeah. Those are the best hours of my week. Then you're not nowhere. You're not nobody. You're her father. And years from now, she's not going to remember how much money you made. She's going to remember that you showed up, that you didn't quit, that you loved her enough to sacrifice everything. Robert's eyes went bright. He looked away, blinking. That matters, Elvis said. That's everything. Jesus, Robert said, voice rough. He wiped his eyes. Now, who's giving advice? Elvis looked at the clock. 1:47 a.m. He'd been there almost 30 minutes. I should let you get back to your book, Elvis said. He reached for his wallet and pulled out all the cash inside, several $100s. He set it on the counter. Robert stared. What's this? For the coffee. Coffee's 50 cents. You already paid. Consider it a tip for the advice. Medical bills, you said. This'll help. I can't take this. Sure you can, for your daughter. So maybe you can cut down to one job. See her more often. Elvis pushed the bills closer. Please. Robert's hands trembled as he gathered the money. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything. Just keep going. Keep showing up for her. Elvis took off his leather jacket and set it on the counter. "What are you doing?" Robert asked. "It gets cold at night. This'll keep you warm. And maybe every time you put it on, you'll remember what you told me. About taking the risk. This is too much. It's exactly right." Elvis walked to the door. The bell jingled. "Hey," Robert called. Elvis turned. "What's your name?" Elvis smiled. "Just a guy who needed coffee." "Take care of yourself, Robert." He walked out, got in the Cadillac, and pulled away. In the rearview mirror, he could see Robert standing in the doorway, watching. Elvis headed back toward Memphis, back toward the meeting where he'd tell NBC exactly what kind of special he was going to make. Not their version, his, the real thing, the risky thing, the thing that mattered. For the first time in years, Elvis felt certain. Not confident, not fearless, but certain. The man in the gas station had given him permission to be himself again. 3 months later, Elvis walked onto a small stage in Burbank, California, dressed in black leather, no script, just his guitar and his voice, and the thing he'd been suppressing for 8 years. The NBC executives had fought him. The Colonel had threatened. Everyone said he was making a mistake. He did it anyway. He sat with his old musicians and played the music that mattered. He talked between songs, really talked, about where he'd come from, and why he'd been gone, and why he was back. He sang with everything he had, and when he stood alone and sang "If I Can Dream," pouring everything into that song about a better world, he thought about a gas station on Highway 78, about a tired man named Robert, who didn't know he was special, about being told that regret is worse than failure. The comeback special aired in December 1968. 50 million people watched. Critics called it the greatest moment of Elvis's career. It didn't just revive his career, it transformed it. He was back. Robert never knew. He watched the comeback special in his apartment with his daughter, who was visiting for the weekend. She was 12 now, growing up fast. "He's good," she said, when Elvis sang, "If I Can Dream." "Yeah," Robert said. "He is." He didn't recognize the man on screen. Why would he? It was dark that night. He'd barely looked at the guy. Robert still had the jacket. He wore it constantly. He had no idea it had been worn on movie sets, no idea it was worth thousands. He just knew a stranger had given him hope on the worst night of his life. The money, he'd used it exactly as intended, paid medical bills, cut his factory hours, started seeing his daughter every week instead of every other weekend, started sleeping more, started remembering what it felt like to be human. He never played music again, but he started teaching his daughter guitar, started showing her that dreams don't have to die. They just change shape. "Dad," she said during a commercial, "are you crying?" "No," Robert lied, wiping his eyes. "Just tired." But he wasn't tired. Watching Elvis sing about dreams and believing, it felt like a message meant for him, like someone out there understood, like he wasn't alone. Elvis never forgot. Through all the years that followed, the massive tours, the Vegas residencies, the continued success and the health problems, he carried that night with him. Sometimes, before a show, when the fear crept back in, he'd think about Robert, about a man working 2 jobs, convinced he was nobody special when he was exactly the opposite. And Elvis would think, if Robert can keep going, so can I. In 1974, Elvis had his people try to find Robert. They spent weeks searching. They never found him. Maybe Robert had moved. Maybe the details were wrong. Maybe he'd never existed at all, had just been what Elvis needed exactly when he needed it. Elvis preferred to believe he was real. Somewhere out there. Okay. Seeing his daughter, wearing that jacket. Still going. On the night before he died, Elvis found himself thinking about that gas station, about a stranger who'd given him permission to risk everything. He wondered if Robert had any idea. Probably not. But that was okay. Because the gift wasn't about recognition or gratitude. It was about truth spoken at exactly the right moment, by exactly the right person. And Elvis had listened. There are moments that redirect entire lives. They don't announce themselves. They happen in gas stations at 1 a.m, in chance conversations with strangers, in exchanges that seem meaningless at the time. But they echo. Elvis Presley almost let himself become a cautious echo of his former self, almost took the safe path. And then a tired factory worker told him the truth. Regret is worse than failure. Safe is another word for slow death. Take the risk. And Elvis listened. The 1968 comeback special happened because of many things, but it also happened because of a midnight conversation with a man who thought he was nobody special. Robert was wrong about that. He saved Elvis Presley's career that night. He just never knew it. We move through life surrounded by people whose struggles we can't see, whose value we underestimate. We talk to strangers and forget the conversation immediately. We give up on our own dreams while encouraging others to chase theirs. But sometimes, rarely, miraculously, we say exactly what someone needs to hear, exactly when they need to hear it. And the ripples spread in ways we'll never witness. Elvis remembered Robert for the rest of his life. Robert never knew he'd spoken to Elvis at all. And somehow, that makes the story more true. Because it means the gift was pure. The wisdom was real. The connection was human, not fan to star, but person to person, soul to soul. One night, one conversation, one gas station at the edge of nothing, and everything changed. That's the miracle of ordinary moments. That's what happens when we stop performing and start being real, when we share our pain instead of hiding it, when we offer truth instead of comfort. We save each other, and sometimes we don't even know we're doing it. That's enough. That's everything.